Welcome everybody to episode 2 of All Life Talk podcast. I have a guest with me here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Chealsea O'Brien. I am the founder and executive director of the Clarkston Family Farm.
So, what was what's the story behind the farm? How did this all start?
You want the origin story?
Yes,
It's the
yes.
story, Morning Glory. Well, Mel, I actually could ask you first. How did you hear about our farm?
I heard it from my mom, who, believe it or not, worked at the school.
Independence
right there,
Elementary
Independence,
School.
which
Okay,
is where my son goes to.
right
And
on.
we've been here to the previous event you guys had, the little fall festival pumpkin event you guys had, and it got me interested to kind of learn more about your guys' beginning and how long you guys have been here.
Love it.
And I've always heard about the farm because I've always lived in Clarkston for as long as I can remember.
Oh, okay, so
So-
you've lived here almost your entire life,
Yes.
and you have heard about the farm over the last several years. Our farm started, Mel, in 2017. So I'm so glad to hear you say that, because often I'll talk with people and they'll start with, I didn't even know this was here. And my answer is, it only recently was. So we'll have like longtime Clarkston residents come over all the time. They're like, "Where's this then? You know, I've lived here my whole life, and I didn't even know there was a farm here." And that's because there wasn't a farm here until we decided to create this educational farm for kids. Yay, the heater just went off, so we can now hear a little bit better. We're actually in the green room. This used to be a garage, and one of the many projects that my nonprofit team did when we first started this idea, this mission of educating kids about where our food comes from. I have a varied professional background. I've done a lot of different things in my adult life. But I did grow up on a farm. My formative years were on a 200-acre sustainable farm in the Traverse City area. And I think when you have those early childhood memories and experiences that are filled with things like foraging in the woods and growing your own food and making forts and catching frogs, I think it stays with you. When I started as a young woman in my professional life, I actually had a degree in healthcare. So I've always loved this idea of just health and well-being. And I've always had a passion for the sciences and for medicine. So I graduated from Western Michigan University, and I won't tell you what year because I don't want to out myself, but it was a while ago, so go Broncos. And I had a degree in biomedical science and exercise physiology, and I worked for a cardiologist for several years, and I worked with patients that had cardiac disease, that had diabetes. Some of them were obese. And it really made me think deeply about the kinds of choices we make as individuals throughout our lives. Will we be active? Will we spend time in the natural world? But also, what are we putting in our bodies?
Yeah.
What kind of food choices are we making? And those kind of habits, lifestyle choices, certainly you can change and alter as you get older. But fundamentally, the die is somewhat cast. A lot of research will say that the choices you make as a child, the food that's available to you, the kind of healthy living or not so healthy living choices you make in those formative years will stay with you your entire life. And that's really kind of stuck with me. And then I became a mother, and I have three beautiful children. And as a mother, you even think about these things more. My children were all born and raised in the Ferndale area, and I had the great privilege of being able to be part of their outdoor education program. I was really involved in a magnet school that we had there, and outdoor education, nature-based education was fundamental and embedded in my children's curriculum. And it just was such a perfect alignment for me, having a science background, growing up on a farm, caring really deeply not just about healthy choices around movement and being outside in nature, but also healthy food choices. And I come from a big family. I love to cook. So we always say you can't have great food without great ingredients. And the best ingredients are the ones that you grow yourself, that you know exactly where your food is coming from. And I would even go so far as to say seasonal, local, best, right? And we always use organic, sustainable practices here at the farm. So that was my background. That's who I am. That's what I'm passionate about. When we moved to Clarkston 12 years ago, my kids also, just like yours, Mel, went to Independence Elementary School. And I started by just doing some guest teaching here. I got to know the then superintendent, Dr. Rod Rock, Stacy Puzio, a dear friend. She's now in charge in Clarkston of all the whole child health and well-being programs that they have here. Dr. Sean Ryan, who's our current superintendent, all the principals in the area, and master gardeners, folks in other like-minded nonprofits like Blue Heron Conservancy, the Optimist Club, Clarkston Area Optimist Club, and of course my Clarkston Farm and Garden Club friends. So I became fast friends with like-minded professionals that also cared deeply about getting kids outside, getting them off of their phones, teaching them how to grow their own food, and having a love and appreciation of nature and healthy food choices. I would have loved to just work for Clarkston Schools, running their outdoor education programs like I did in Ferndale, but they didn't have an outdoor education program district-wide. Very much supportive of getting kids outside the classroom, hands in the dirt, all these things we know are best practices for kids. We like to say, healthy kids spend time outside. Happy kids spend time in nature and in the natural world. And students that tend to do better academically will have many, many hours of experiences outside, right? Connecting in with nature. So we know that those three markers are supported by more time outside. And we really didn't have a intentional district-wide program to support that. Lots of interest, lots of support. I'm so, so grateful for the Clarkston Community Schools. I just want to say out loud, if you're watching, none of this, our Clarkston Family Farm nonprofit, educational farm for kids, would never exist without that open door and that understanding and willingness and support for our mission of educating kids about the natural world and teaching them about healthy food choices, and then doing that within the context of a positive community gathering space. So I spent a couple of years, Mel, getting to know my community, and each year it was re-inspiring me and fueling that coal in the belly, that fire for doing what I get to do every day for Clarkston. I was able to bring in other like-minded professionals and develop an advisory board and create a nonprofit. And we found that after looking all over Independence Township and surrounding areas, that there really wasn't any place, any property that was like zoned agriculture to do this idea, this mission of having an educational farm for kids. But every day, Mel, I would drive up and down this little road here, Hubbard, and I would take my kids to Independence Elementary School. And there was this 10-acre property right on the corner that had 2 old barns and an old farmhouse. And it really did kind of get my wheels going. I kept thinking, gosh, I wonder what's going on there. What are these old barns all about? And I met some folks that had connections with the original owners. The Bayless family used to live here in the 70s through the late 90s. Wonderful, really incredible family. Sheldon Bayless, the father, physician, his wife Maria Bayless, who actually just passed this week at the ripe old age of 95. They had 9 incredible children, all of whom are physicians, veterinarians, again, really caring deeply about health, right? And they kind of encouraged me. There's actually one of our public servants, Paul Brown, he's the treasurer for Independence Township. I got to know Paul, and Paul said, you know, Chealsea, I wonder if you couldn't lease that corner that used to be the Bayless farm. They had horses, so it, you know, has this historical farm feel. They have 32 horses. They've raised horses professionally here. It's a beautiful property. There's a pond and a wetland and some open fields, lots of beautiful mature trees. And while it wasn't as big as I was initially thinking, you know, it's 10 acres, it's not a huge property. It was enough, I felt like, to do what I was really inspired to do. So we dug in a little further. The school district still owns this corner lot. They loved the idea of a nonprofit. They didn't want just anybody here because it's right next to the school, so they're not going to make it a tattoo shop or a car dealership, or, you know, it needed to be something that worked in synergy with, in support of this cultures of thinking, the educational, you know, programs. So it's zoned educational, but used to be a farm. Come on, it was meant to be.
Right.
And it had been, you know, vacant. They certainly, you know, school districts, they use every bit of property they have, lots and lots of storage. This was used for storage, but, and the Bayless family would agree, you have this thriving, family-centered farm with 32 horses and 9 children and this great big old farmhouse, and then it just sat being used for storage for almost 20 years. It's kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
So when my nonprofit, myself, and my advisory board at the time approached the school district and said, check out this map that we have. Take a look at our mission. This is our strategic plan, and this is our vision for this property. What do you say? They were all in. So we initially had a 5-year lease because both of us wanted to see, would this work? There was a lot to do. Oh my gosh, there's just so much to clear out. Almost everything you see when you walk through our farm today, our Giving Tree Orchard, our outdoor cooking lab, the healing hoop house, the teaching pavilion, the green room that you're sitting in right now, our adorable little sunflower market, the gathering garden. I could go on and on with all of the teaching garden and farm spaces, not to mention all the wonderful animals we have. None of that was here, and I mean none of it 7 years ago. So we were starting from scratch. We had $0 in our budget. My husband was kind enough to say, hey, you know, our family can fund some of this. My grandfather had also passed away that very first year, and he and my mom donated some money to help get us started. Optimist Club gave us some money early on with some significant grants to help get us rolling. And 7 years later now, we have invested over $300,000 in capital improvements. We've created all those spaces that I've shared with you, and we now see 15,000 students. It's such a remarkable story and a really, I think, inspiring one for other people with big ideas in Independence Township, Clarkston, or anywhere really in Southeast Michigan, that if you have a great idea and if your heart is in the right place and you're doing what's best for kids, people will help you. Our local businesses have been just enormously generous. Calvin Bourdine, who is the CEO of Bourdines, it's a local nursery. They're very successful. They have multiple locations throughout the state. I cannot say enough nice things about Cal. He helped us build our hoop house. Wojo's also has been wonderful. Genesis Credit Union has really showed up time and time again. So many local businesses. The Union Joints. I don't think that there's one person that I have talked to or asked for support in some way that said, nah, I don't really think getting kids outside is something important. Nah, I think it's fine that kids spend way too much time on their cell phones. I don't really care about healthy food. It doesn't really resonate with me. I think almost everybody can agree that the nature of childhood is changing. There's not much nature in it.
Unfortunately, there isn't.
It is really one of the greatest challenges of our time. I love our cell phones. We're recording this podcast on a smartphone. What a wonderful tool that is. Social media has been our friend for almost no money. We've been able to use and leverage the marketing that is then Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and some of these other platforms. I love the podcast. What a fun way to share the work that we do. But it can be addictive, and I think our youth are especially susceptible to that fear of missing out. You've heard that term before, right? Oh, FOMO, fear of missing out, or everybody's comparing with one another, and it's caused a great deal of mental health issues with our young people. My antidote for that is get off your phone. If you are growing things, if you are harvesting food, if you're cooking with that food, if you're building things, if you're taking my animals on a trail walk, if you're learning about the natural world, collecting milkweed seeds, or down at the pond doing a macroinvertebrate sort, I'll tell you what you're not doing. You are not on your phone. You're not scrolling or swiping or comparing yourself with other people. You're in the moment. You're in green space. You are immersed in nature, and blood pressure goes down. Heart rate goes down. Kids talk to each other.
Right.
They problem solve together. They laugh. One of the really cool things in having this farm, which is, it's just such a special place, Mel. It's such a joyful place. It's such a welcoming place for all learners. And I think those safe spaces are extremely important too, not just here in Clarkston, but all over. We like to say our farm is a place for all learners, all abilities, regardless of age, regardless of income, regardless of race, regardless of religious affiliation, regardless of sexual orientation. What we care about here is, are you kind? Are you a good person? That's our vibe. And I think that's extremely, extremely important. And not to get too political, but everybody knows that our country is just so divided, and the farm is a place of common ground. Again, there's not a single person that can say that they don't love the idea of just getting kids outside, getting them off their phone, teaching them how to have healthier food choices and healthier life choices. We like to say at the Clarkston Family Farm we only have 2 rules. Have fun, be safe. And we're now, like I said, seeing so many thousands and thousands of students that it's been really cool to see some of our young people. This is 7 years now we've been around. Some of our young people are now teenagers. They're now my camp counselors. I just had a nutrition class field trip where we had about 90 16, 17, and 18-year-old students. And I always say, okay, who's ever been to the farm before? I think almost every hand was raised. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
It's just awesome. And you know what else is really, really fun to see for me as a mom and a teacher? These young adults that are trying so hard to be so cool, when they come here, they can be kids. They don't have to worry about putting on this facade of, you know, pretty or sexy or macho. When you're playing with baby bunnies, like, it all melts away, right? When you're able to like make some yummy, delicious salsa, you can get excited about that and share with your friends. So it's been really neat to see. I go back to this all ages and all abilities. We have learners of all ages. We've been working with seniors a lot too. So obviously I could go on and on. You've got questions, ask them, let's hear them.
What are some of like your future plans for the farm? Like, do you hope to like keep expanding or just do more with it?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. So where to go and where to grow. I think a lot about this. Now we're 7 years in. We have renegotiated our lease. We have another 10 years. Everybody was like, okay, well, that was enormously successful. Wow, even more than I would have imagined. What a blessing. And what a testimony to what a community can do if we all agree that this is what's best for kids, right? What I have been doing with our board and with the collaboration and support of what I like to think of as partners in education, so other local businesses, nonprofits, individuals that just love what we're doing and want to see more, is this idea of safe and dignified access for all learners. You'll hear me say this again: all ages, all abilities. A farm is not naturally inclusive for folks with mobility issues. It's just not. You know, you've got the mulched trails, you have undulated surfaces, you've got, you know, spaces in the garden that are hard to access. We've got this wetland down through the monarch meadow and through these trails. And we do work with our SCAMP friends. That's a special needs camp. We host during the summer for a couple of days. We get a bunch of hundreds of kids coming out through SCAMP.
I know
you know SCAMP very well.
I work at the junior high, so we dealt with them during the summers.
Yeah, we also have a terrific, mutually beneficial relationship with Renaissance High School Life Skills friends. So they come out a couple of days a week and they help with the animals, and I don't know what I'd do without them. They're just wonderful. So yes, where to go and where to grow. We need to make our farm even more accessible. I care so much about this idea of welcoming all learners. And I need to, and our board is very committed to putting our money where our mouth is. So while we have been pouring into these beautiful interactive teaching gardens and all these, you know, great spaces that can be very accommodating for this positive community gathering, our, you know, large family fun days and such, we need the pathways to connect those so you can safely, even if you're in a wheelchair or you have a walker or moms with strollers, or also some folks that are on the spectrum. The undulation can be hard for them, so having smooth, accessible pathways is really, really important for that safety piece. Have fun, be safe, and be welcoming and inclusive for all learners. We call that project Pathways to Possibilities. And we started fundraising for that 2 years ago, and we've made a lot of progress. We are not there yet. I've been working quietly behind the scenes with some larger businesses in the community, and I'm feeling very hopeful. You know who you are. That we can have some significant partnerships and some resources, some funding to really accelerate our initiative for these pathways. So I would say we're almost done with phase 1, but we have a 4-phase strategic plan to make our farm more connected and more accessible for all learners. I often get from folks, and even some of my advisory board members, and I think a lot about this concept of growth. I love how much we've grown in a very short amount of time. And if you include COVID in there, that's 2 years where we really weren't able to do any programming. I mean, we were barely surviving. That was a scary time for a new little nonprofit, but we made it through. So 7 years is not long. And we've accomplished a great deal. Our first year we had 560, almost 600 students, and I told you now we see, approximately 15,000 kids, and they're from all over Southeast Michigan, not just Clarkston.
Does the number keep growing every year?
Well, this is the thing, Mel, is there does come a point where growth for the sake of growth is actually not appropriate, right?
Sure.
That we want to do whatever we do with excellence. We have a very high bar here. I don't want to do anything unless it's going to be the best program we can put forth. And that takes work, and I do think that there are ways that we can expand. For instance, we'd like to expand our market hours. While we see, many, many thousands of students, we see even more just community members. So it's a little over 35,000 bodies, 35,000 individuals came through our farm in 2024. And it's not over yet. We have Christmas at the farm coming up, December 7th. There'll be, over 1,000 people here that day. So we are growing, and I know that with, expanded farm market hours, I think that we can offer great, healthy, beautiful produce, support other local farmers, share that with our community. I can see expanding our farm market hours, but I kind of feel like we're getting close to at capacity. We are a smaller farm. We have a really lean budget. Almost everybody that's here are volunteers, so it's not like I just have this massive staff. I started the farm not to make money. I started the farm because I felt called to do this work, and I know the way my own children learn. I know what the studies clearly demonstrate, and I also know how valuable it's been because of the work that I've done as a public school teacher and working in a traditional public school classroom. So I'd like to expand, but only if that means that we don't dilute the really quality, award-winning nature-based programs that we offer to our community. So these are things that our board, wrestles with, like any growing organization. You always are thinking, okay, should we push out here? Where are we going to put our resources? And does that, and this is my job as the founder and executive director, does it support, let's bring it back in, does this support our mission? Are we educating kids about the natural world? Are we providing a positive community gathering space? Are we still, inspiring a love of nature? Are we staying true to our mission? And I know that we have been true to our mission, and that's my job as we continue to grow and expand and serve more community members and in different ways, to make sure that whatever we do with excellence, that we are always mission driven and supporting that mission, and that we circle back around and make sure that this farm is always going to be a safe, welcoming place for all learners.
How many of the students that have come through return as volunteers?
Oh my gosh, so many, and what a testimony to the time that they've had here. The first couple years, it was my kids and my children's friends, and I have a great family. It's not called the Clarkston Family Farm for nothing. Obviously, family also means the Clarkston family and the farm family. But my two daughters and my son, they have all put their time in. And they have great friend group that also were like, sure, Mrs. O'Brien, we'll help you with garden club, or we'll be a counselor for Camp Wild. And why wouldn't you? What a great summer gig. I mean, it really is have fun, and I am serious about that. I really approach this work, this life's work, with joy. And if I'm not having fun, I am not getting paid enough to do this, unless it's something that makes my world, my family, my community, and me feel uplifted. So yes, I think you may have heard this term before, your vibe becomes your tribe. We have got incredible volunteers, and many of them are students. So yes, we have kids that have gone through, say, our Camp Wild program, and they've been campers for several years. And because I've been doing this for 7 years, those kids that were coming to me in first, second, third grade, they're high school kids now. So we have a counselor and training program, and once they've done, their counselor and training year, then they can come back as a counselor or a station leader or a team leader. I mentioned our Christmas at the Farm event. I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but if it's before December 7th, yeah.
I'm hoping to have it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, then let me just again talk to the folks that are listening and say, you are welcome to come. It is a free family fun day. And if you're interested, of course, register. There's no cost for registration, but we ought to know you're coming. And if you're interested in volunteering, last Christmas at the farm, I'd have to run the numbers, but I want to say it was something like 74 volunteers. It was between 70 and 80 volunteers for that one event. So we thrive on the love and support from our community. And any nonprofit is heavily reliant on loyal, committed, wonderful volunteers, and ours is no different. But I would say, even just in a week, we're working with 50 or more volunteers just on a regular week. Our farm animals we haven't talked very much about, but we have a really cool program called our Barnyard Buddies. And we have 5 goats, we have 2 horses, we have a donkey, we've got pigs and chickens and ducks, and we have an entire breeding program in Bunnyville. So at any point in time, you'll have anywhere between 6 and 12 or 13 bunnies. And it takes 3 families each day. That's 21 families a week just to take care of our animals. So, boy, help us, come volunteer. It's such a wonderful way to give back to your community. We've got all these fun little sayings here at the farm, but one of them is, you give to the farm, you get from the farm. And I know that our volunteers are appreciated. I hope that they feel the gratitude that I and my team have for each and every hour that they spend here. They also get from the farm, and it's not just free lunches, although we love to feed our volunteers, but it's also, just that sense of peace. And there's something about being in beautiful natural spaces. The air smells sweeter. They're so colorful. Um, just like being in nature, you're spending time with animals. Our horses and our donkey, we call them the three amigos because they just have to hang out together, so they're the three best friends. Our donkey especially is really empathetic. I've often noticed he's a 15-year-old miniature donkey.
Wow.
And he actually is owned by one of my friends who has been very involved in Optimist Club, Clarkston Family and Garden Club, Joette Coons and Bill Coons. They're wonderful friends of the farm. But they wanted us to have little man here because he lost his horse companion, and they're herd animals, so they can't be by themselves. So he was lonely, and he's not lonely here. And he's developed this really strong connection with Bubbles, who's one of our miniature horses, and Biscuit, who's another miniature horse. But I've noticed students that maybe are struggling with anxiety or depression, or perhaps they are on the spectrum, or they are in that special needs community. Maybe they have some cognitive delays. The animals sense that, and you'll see little man especially will seek those students out and kind of lean in, and it's this quiet moment, and you can just see how meaningful that is for the students. So the farm animals is really been such a lovely addition to the farm. And oddly enough, not one that I was really envisioning that first year. My background, really is in farming and the healthy eating choices. So I just, I love to garden. It's been part of my entire life. But we never had farm animals growing up. A couple of chickens, but not really much beyond that. And I have really learned to love the farm animal friends, our barnyard buddies. Yeah.
I've had farm animals, believe it or not.
Yeah. What kind of farm animals have you had?
Well, my mom, our entire family, we love animals, so it's kind of why I wanted to do this with you.
Oh,
and
good.
I love the idea of the farm.
Thank you.
My entire family loves animals, and especially my son, he loves animals. He just has that special connection. He's always had animals from the day he was born, kind of around him. So for me, that nature connection and connection with the animals is very important for him.
Yeah, it is. I think it's important for all people, but there are some people that really just zero right in and just gravitate right in. When we're developing our programs, and we haven't talked a lot about curriculum, but I know we're coming up on our half an hour, and I told you I could be long-winded because I love talking about the farm. But one of my passions is curriculum development, and really working with our public school teachers, our curriculum coordinators, in not just public schools, but also homeschool curriculum, scouting curriculum, and seeing what are you already supposed to be teaching? What are you already supposed to be working on? Is there a badge you're looking to acquire? Let's do that outside. Let's do that, in the farm space. This is my classroom. Let's use this. And I love allowing the farm to add relevance to the rigor in the classroom. And whether that classroom is your living room because you're homeschooling your students, or whether that classroom is, the scouting opportunities that Boys and Girl Scouts have been so wonderful here. We actually are the charter organization for Troop 199, and they've done amazing things to help improve the farm, just the structure. So lots and lots of Eagle Scout projects here. I want to say 15. I think we've had 15 Eagle Scout projects, which is it's just unheard of. Oh my gosh, the latest one was massive. They did fencing to protect our animals, to make sure that, if the horses, God forbid, got out, they wouldn't run into the parking lot at the neighboring school. So, but going back,
kids would probably find that hilarious.
they would, but it makes me nervous with all the cars. I want, have fun, Mel. And what's the second rule?
Be safe.
Be safe, and that applies to our animals as well. But the farm animals certainly have, I think, elevated the connections that we can have. And when I develop curriculum in concert with, whatever grade level expectations our teachers need, I really try to curate our program to match as closely as we can that connections with, say, Next Gen Science or the language arts curriculum that they're working on. I always make sure that animals are part of our curriculum every single time. So, for instance, in 3rd grade, they're working on, again, adding relevance to math. What kid has gone through any kind of public school and hasn't said, why do I need to know this? I'll never use this, referring to math skills, right? So we try to, again, show them how important math is. You need to understand volume when you're building a raised bed, because otherwise, how are you going to know how much soil to buy, right? That's a math application. But for 3rd grade, we have a program called Connections in Nature, and we actually have the students that come interact with all the 3 areas for our animals, so they'll get to see all the animals, but they are going to chart using a rubric, and we also get to talk about subjective and objective observations, so we're stretching those language arts a little bit too with some great vocabulary, but they get to decide what the animals contribute to the farm. I told you before, you give to the farm, you get from the farm. Ain't nothing in this world for free.
Right.
I learned that from a very young age. We come from a bootstraps kind of hardworking family. Everybody contributes. Doesn't matter who does it, just has to get done. And our animals are no exception. There's no free ride for anybody here, so you have to be able to contribute to the farm. So we invite our students to say, all right, what do our ducks contribute? And then we have different categories. How about our horses? What might they contribute to the farm? Do they give us horse manure to help make compost? Oh yeah, that would be something. Okay, we'll give them a point for that. Do they do any farm work? Could they pull a cart, maybe help us irrigate? Okay, well, let's think about that. So we go through, and then guess what we do with that data? We graph it. That is real life application. And we also start by posing our students a question. If the farm didn't have enough money to buy the food for all of the animals that we had, and we had to make a choice of ducks, bunnies, horses, goats, pigs, chickens, donkey, which one should we let go? Not an emotional decision, not a subjective decision, but an objective decision based on data. So you have to tell me. And the kids at the end, after they've gone through, they've made some, observations, they've recorded their data on their rubric, assessed a point value for each of the animals. We amass all that data, we graph it, and then we have to decide which one has to go. And it really just brings the whole thing to life for these kids, because now there's some skin in the game.
Yeah,
Because they're
really think it through at the same time.
It really does. And are those hard decisions that farmers have to make sometime? You bet they are. Absolutely. Do families have to make hard decisions sometimes? We can't keep all 5 of these cars. All right, which one are we going to keep? So these are the things that I get really jazzed about. I love developing curriculum. I love seeing the kids like light up, start making connections to the real world, relevance to the rigor in the classroom. And then each of our teachers will also get a packet of information so they can extend that learning back in the classroom, and they can revisit, even if it's just a couple hours here at the farm, they can revisit that really rich, sensory, impactful experience that the students have had here at the farm, and they can connect it in with social studies, science, language arts, math, and art. We always do a make and take. I think art is so important, and kids love bringing something home. We try to incorporate music as much as we can. I love to sing. I'm a musician in my own rights, and I just try to incorporate that in so much of what we do, especially with our younger learners. And we also know, because I do have a background in exercise physiology, we also know that a lot of learning is kinesthetic. So we have kids learn through movement. Kids love to play games, right? So we're doing games. In 5th grade, we have a game called Oh Dear, and they get to play out different populations over years' time. So I could go on and on about curriculum. It's something that's so fun for me to pull in new ideas, to try to keep it fresh, and to really try to closely connect with what our teachers are already teaching. And that makes our teachers happy too, because having been a public school teacher, we know, man, do they work hard. And they are trying to cram so much into their day-to-day work that they do with kids. And there's a lot of testing, and don't even get me started on some of my opinions about that. But I want to make our teachers' job easier. I want the kids to be so excited about what they're learning here and have so much fun when they're here that they forget they're learning. And then they bring those experiences back to the classroom, and it makes their job easier, because maybe they are talking about the value of wetlands, and that's part of their science curriculum. Well, my students will have just gone out to the Discovery Pond. They will have caught tadpoles and caddisfly larvae and dragonfly larvae, and they, maybe some leeches, and they're looking at these under, magnifying glass, and they're charting the results of those macroinvertebrates. Now they have a real life experience to tie back into. What other questions do you have? We probably should finish up here, right?
Yeah. What would be some of your favorite events that you've held here so far? Mm-hmm. And what would be some of the top favorites?
Yeah, well, we already mentioned it. I love Christmas at the farm. I absolutely love it. It's something that we started almost 6 years ago, and it is just such a wonderful, last hurrah before we kind of wind down a little bit. We are a farm, even though we're primarily an educational space. Farms have spring, summer, fall, winter. It's seasonal. So we're going gangbusters 6 to 8 months of the year. But after Christmas at the farm, after our last big hurrah, we get to kind of slow down a little, regroup, write grants, think about our strategic plan, work on repainting the ceiling in here, or curriculum development. I get to do a lot of outreach during those slower months, January, February, March, and then once the kids come back from spring break, it's hit the ground running, 100 kids a day, and we're back in business. But I would say that positive community gathering space, the big events that we do every year now, is an Easter event, which I love, and we have Easter egg hunt for 600 kids, and Easter bunny comes, and fun crafts, and it's a delight. Monarch Butterfly Festival, also terrific event. That's the big event that we've done 6 years now. This coming year will be our 7th year. We partner with Monarch Watch and local folks that care deeply about conservation and sustainability, and of course the monarch butterfly. And then we have a hoedown that is a fundraiser, and our hoedown is a blast. Oh, it's just such a blast. And then Christmas at the farm. We also have a spring fundraiser. We do a chicken run, which is like a 5K run, and that's specifically raising money for our Pathways to Possibilities project. And we also have a garden club. I'm sorry, I'll re-say that. We have a garden party in the spring, and that's to raise money for scholarships for kids, because all ages, all abilities, regardless of income.
Out of all the animals that you have here, do you?
Don't ask me if I have a favorite. I don't have a favorite. That's like saying, so you've got these 3 children. Which one's your favorite? I love them all. I think.
Do you see any specific animal that you have that kind of has a special attachment to you, as opposed to the others?
I think the 3 amigos are the most emotionally intelligent. They also live to be a pretty, they live a long life. They can, live to be up to 40, which kind of blew my mind. So there's a lot of depth of emotion there. And yeah, horses and donkeys, they're so much more intelligent than we give them credit for, but also I think they're very emotionally intuitive, so I think there's a real connection there. I do love the goats too, though. I think they're a total riot. We have these triplets, and they're 13 weeks old, but they're miniature goats, so they won't ever get any bigger than about like this, and they are precious. And they just follow you around. It's just kind of fun. I don't know if the horses would do that. Maybe. But the goats definitely just follow you around. And they goatscape. And I'm big on work. I'm a work ethic girl to my core. So I'm like, all right, what do you contribute? And the goats, they will goatscape all the bramble. They're actually very helpful in that respect with like the weeding. And the kids love them. But yeah, I don't know that I could choose. I mean, each of our animals we have here on site for a reason. The bunnies are great for cuddling, and we adopt them out, and it can teach a little bit about genetic variation, which is kind of fun to see. I mean, they're just darling. The chickens are super cute in the spring as baby chicks, so they give us eggs, and our eggs are gorgeous. Come into the market Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 to 6. We've got tons of beautiful produce, fresh baked bread, local raw honey, local syrup, and eggs. Our eggs are the best, and they're really pretty because we have so many different types of chickens that we have all these different colors and shapes and sizes. And the pigs are awesome too. They build great soil. They've been really fun to have on site. They help to keep some of the predators away. So we haven't had a lot of issues with like raccoons or possum or hawks, because our pigs are actually pretty good protectors.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know either. It's kind of fun to see how this farm animal ecosystem, works all together. And we crop rotate because that's best practices for a sustainable farm, but we also will animal rotate. So I'll have the pigs in this area, one season, and then they'll really gut all the weeds, and they'll eat all the grubs, and they'll poop in the soil, and we'll make some great, beautiful soil, and then we'll move them to a different spot, and then that can be a garden for next year. So it all works really, really well together. And again, 7 years is not long, but we're now at a place where we know the land. We know this property, we have the systems in place where we're able to really do some incredible growing. But I'll finish maybe with this, because I know we're well beyond our half an hour. But we often are asked, I'm asked a lot, what's your best crop? And I always have to reply with kids. Farming's hard, and if I was wearing my cowboy hat, my hat's off to all of our local farmers, our hard-working folks in the field of agriculture, the Oakland County Farm Bureau. Love you, Kathy Genovese. You've been enormously supportive. Peggy Thomas, if you're watching this, you're my girl. The Farm Bureau has been a wonderful supporter of ours. They recognize just immediately how important it is to teach youth not just about where their food comes from, but about agriculture in general. It's the third largest industry in Michigan. And I think more young people should learn about that as a career option because our farmers are getting older.
Right.
And what do we do without our farmers? Like, come on, they're just essential. They're vital. It's so important to the fabric of our society. And we talk about an unsung hero from dusk till dawn. These farmers, they're just the hardest working people you'll meet. But I'm so glad that I don't have to rely on our crop production because it is really hard to make any money growing food. You have to be very, very savvy and understand markets and how to package the food and there's pest and there's drought and there's so much to unpackage there. But we have been successful growing a lot of beautiful food here. But my primary goal has always been we are an educational farm. This is my classroom. It just looks different than a traditional classroom, but this is my classroom. And what we grow best are kids. That's our best crop. Growing hearts and minds is what we do. And I love doing it.
That's the questions I got for you. So
All right.
it was great having you on here.
Thank you,
And
Melvin.
hopefully we could do another one down the road.
Sure.
Keep track of the progress and
Sure, we can do a follow-up on our Pathways to Possibilities project.
that would be great.
Yeah, it would be great, and I would love to give some kudos to some of the partners that I mentioned. Didn't want to put pressure on them while we're still kind of